Hello everyone, Mr. Schultz here as we dive into graphing quadratic equations. So make sure you put your name at the top as well as your period number, and let's go over our learning goals. Our learning goals are to graph quadratic functions and identify key characteristics of a quadratic function. Now you can jump into a different video I have on what is a function, but understand for every input, there's only one output. And so here's a basic description of that. Now, for quadratics, our quadratics have a standard form. Now, this could, you remember with linear functions, it was y equals mx plus b, and that makes a line. Well, a quadratic is going to make a parabola. And so it looks kind of like this. Put your arms up, point down. That's a parabola. It's kind of like a U shape, either pointing up or pointing down. Now, what is this standard form? It's not y equals mx plus b. It's going to be y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. So just like the linear equation, these are functions as long as we're not doing any funky things with it. For example, if we put in all our inputs, there should not be two outputs for one input. Now we're going to see something crazy coming up, but understand one output only has, or one input only has one output. An output could have different inputs. That's okay. But what we don't want is more than one output for an input. There we go. So the line that splits a parabola into two equal parts is called the axis of symmetry. Now, it is this axis of symmetry that cuts a parabola or a quadratic function in half. All the points on the right will reflect to the left, and the y values will be the same. So the axis of symmetry touches the parabola at exactly one point, either the minimum or the maximum, which is called the vertex. Since the equation of a vertical line is x equals a number, so for example, if I have something like this, so this is just an example line I made, x equals 3.5. It's literally every point on here, x is 3.5. Now the y values are different. That's okay. But this is a function. But that's not what we're talking about now. We're just explaining that our axis of symmetry will be a vertical line going up and down. Since the equation of a vertical line is x equals, for example, this one, 3.5, we then have the x coordinate or the x value of our vertex. So let's write that in. X coordinate. So that's this part right here. We have this. We then only need to plug in the x coordinate into the quadratic equation to find the y value. So that's pretty much this right here. Let's draw it in for you. So this equation right here is to find the vertex, and you need to find the vertex first because that is your starting point. It's going to start at the bottom and go up or start at the top and come down. And you need to know, where does this start? So let's give an example of this. All right, so I'm going to come up with this equation, y equals x squared plus 2x. Now let me draw in my coordinate plane. So in this instance, I look at this and I know my vertex is this equation, this formula right here. So I look right here and I go, okay, I need to know A and B. A and B. I don't care about C. In this instance, C is plus 0. But I don't care about C because in this vertex formula, it's not needed. So in this case right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take negative B, and B is 2, so now it's negative 2, and I'm going to divide it by 2 times A. 2 times A, well, A, it's an implied 1, because how many x squareds are here? 1. So now I'm going to divide it by 2. So now this is going to be negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. So in this instance, I know that at negative 1, I have my axis of symmetry. This is going to be important later. The first thing you need to do is find your axis of symmetry. Let's go on. Now, some more information on A. In y equals a squared plus b, ax squared plus bx plus c. If a is less than 0, meaning if it's negative, then the vertex is going to be a maximum. Now, what is this we're talking about? Let's draw a quick diagram. If it is negative, then it's going to look, the parabola is going to look like this. And the vertex is going to be on top. So it's now a maximum. If a is positive, bigger than 0, then the vertex is a minimum. Minimum. And it looks like this. It looks like a U pointing up, with a lowest point being called the vertex. All right, let's go on in 3, 2, 1. All right, guys. So way back when I was learning how to graph things from like 5th grade through, calculus, my teachers always told me you need to have an XY table. So go ahead and write your XY table right there. Now, you could pick random points and you could make some good guesses to figure out what some good points are to draw. But you're going to need to make sure that, hey, you want to make sure you model correctly and make it life easier for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this up right. We're going to find that axis of symmetry. So let me set it up for you. So our vertex, our axis of symmetry, the x value will equal negative b over 2a. Now we look at this and we're like, all right, a is 1. It's positive, so it's going to open up and have a minimum. And b is 2. Hey, I like this one. It's exactly like the other one, but different. It has a c value. So we already know it should be at the axis of symmetry should be at negative 1. Let's see if it is. So we're going to start doing our work. We have negative 2 over 2 times 1. And by golly, yes, it's still at negative 1. So now let's figure out so we're going to put that over here on our little chart right here, our little XY table. So now what we have to do is we have to do some plug and check. We're going to plug in negative 1 into each of these values. So technically, you don't need to write every single one down. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I'm doing in my head as I do it. All right, so the first thing I do is I input -1 for every value of x. So -1 times -1, because it's squared, will give me 1. And this 2 times -1 is now -2. And this is a -3. So what I see right here is the following: -5 and a 1. So that would be -4. So when x is -1, y is going to be -4. All right. And the next step is to plug in a number both below and above. So let's do that. I'm going to plug in 0 and -2. So why don't you pause, why don't you try it out, and then see if you match up my work. All right, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in -2 times itself would be 4. And then 2 times -2 is -4, not 2. And then -3. So 4 minus 4 is 0. Minus 3 is -3. Now I have 0 squared is 0, plus 2 times 0, which is 0, and I have -3. Hey, wait a second here. They're the same number. So we're going to notice that once we have our line of symmetry, any number away that matches on the top to the bottom. So for example, 0 is 1 away. Then going the opposite way, so instead of +1 to get 0, if we do -1, our y values will be the same. Let's show you with the next problem. In 3, 2, 1. We're going to plug in 1 and 2. All right, so I've set up my problem. Now I'm just going to quickly go through and see that this gives me a 0, and this will give me a not the 0. 8 minus 3 is 5. So at 1, it's 0, and at 2, it's 5. Now, if I go back and said, hey, I want -3, it should be 1, 2, 3, or no, 1, 2, 1, 2. It should be 0. And if I plugged in -4, it should be 5. The y values are reflected on the parabola. Let's show you why. I'm going to actually take these points now and draw them. Now, this doesn't look too hot the way I drew it, but if you look at it, you can see that I have my axis of symmetry right here. Here's my red line going down. And if you look, each of these points have a corresponding part. You look, hey, the vertex is on the line, and then my next point, it's 1 away, 1 away. These are 2 away, 2 away. This is 3 away, 3 away. And if we were to informally draw our line, we should see, oh, I missed it. That's all right. I'm going to draw this one. Yeah, I slightly missed that one. We can see that it has a U shape. Now, some of the U shapes are going to be wider, some of them are going to be shorter, but in this case, it looks all right, and it's positive, so it has a minimum. Why is it going up? Because the A is positive. All right, let's go on to the next problem. All right, guys? Is y equals -2x squared. So let's pause it. What I want you to do is I want you to try to solve this. Go ahead and pause it now, and then I'm going to show all my work and explain it. In 3, 2, 1. All right, so first off, I'm not going to draw my line anymore. I'm going to draw, well, I should probably try to make it a little bit thicker. I'm going to draw in my axes by making lines like the following. There we go. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find my axis of symmetry. I look at this equation, I see, hey, it's -2 is the A, so I'm going to go 2 times -2, and then my B is, it's nothing. There's no plus x here. Well, what's nothing? 0. So why don't we put a 0 right there? And let's talk about, can we divide by 0? No. But can we divide into 0? Yeah, we'd get 0 though. So my axis of symmetry is when x equals 0. Where's that? Well, x is 0. Well, I should probably do my line right here. X is 0 on the y-axis. So now I want you to figure out several points on here, starting with 0 and working way out. All right, guys, let's do it. So a few things jumped out right here. One, I made my my coordinate plane right here a little bit too low. I had to bring it up because this is a negative a quadratic equation, meaning it is a parabola that is going to be pointing down. It has a maximum, no minimum. So looking at this, I plugged in 0, 1, 2, 3, and I got 1, 2, 3, but I can't get the fourth one because it's going too far down. But I know if this is my axis of symmetry, 0, when x is 0, then I know at negative 1, the answer is going to be negative 2. So I can plug it in right here. Negative 1 is negative 2. I know at negative 2, it should be right here, which was what? Negative 8. And I know I'm not going to plot it, but negative 3 would give me negative 18 because it is reflected. It is symmetrical at x equals 0. And so here is my graph, my parabola, my quadratic equation. And I know that it has a minimum because that a is negative 2, specifically the negative part. So here's the trick. You're going to need about like 5 points. How many points? 5. But the most important one being the axis of symmetry, and then 2 more points. Because after that, it's going to go way high or way low. All right, guys. Thank you for being here. I'll see you guys in class. Bye.